This is Agnes, and this is Unconscious Potential. Why is it unconscious potential? Well, because I feel like we are capable of so much, and we're not even touching the outer edges of what we're capable of. And actually, Unconscious Potential came as a name for my business for hypnosis, and it was something that I always felt as a child. As a child, I was always fascinated with the unseen, with the untouchable, with what is felt, what is perceived, but cannot be communicated. Psychic phenomena, just the knowing, having feelings of things that are gonna come, that come true. Also, I'm Polish, so I feel like we have a different culture that is a little more rooted in the dead, in understanding your relationship with the earth, in actual communion with the unseen forces. And I've always had that. I've unfortunately been the bringer of death, not because I chose to, but because as a child, for some reason, I didn't even know I was doing it. But for some reason, I was receptive to some force that would tell me things like, it's time to go and visit grandma in the hospital. And I would say that I was 6 years old. I would say that when we were getting ready to go to the beach. So I had a fun day planned. And I remember standing in front of the mirror in the hallway in my grandparents' house. And I was like, I think we should go see grandma before we go to the beach. And they're like, why? Like, don't you want to go? I'm like, no, I feel like we should go before we go. And they're like, they were not happy about it. They're like, no, we're just going to go after. We're just going to go after. And it turned out, when I say grandma, it was my great grandmother. I was my grandfather's mother. And when we arrived at the hospital, she was in a very violent way of dying. She was actively dying, and it wasn't pretty. Now that I think of it, now that I'm saying it out loud, I don't think I've ever seen someone pass away like that. I don't think I've actually heard of someone fight death, or it'd be such a painful, traumatic struggle. So we were there for hours. And then we called family, or I can't remember if my aunt was already there. She might have been there. We called family, and we were there for hours, yeah, until she passed away. And she was calling people. She was calling to people in the room that were deceased. And then she was calling for people that were alive. And she called for me, but she used my mom's name, Marlena. She's like, Marlena's here. Give me Marlena. And they're like, you don't have to go. You don't have to go. And I was like, no, I'm going to go. And they warned me, like, that it's ugly. This is not herself. This is, And I went in, and she was like thrashing, and she was fighting, and she was going like, no, 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 no. Now, mind you, this woman survived the Second World War. Nazis. She was a seamstress. And I heard these stories because I used to actually share a bedroom with my great grandmother in Poland, communist Poland. So she would tell me all these stories, and I would ask her questions every night, like, how is paper made? And that's how I fell asleep. I didn't get books read to me, but I got stories told to me. And what she would tell me about her events during war, and they were not pretty, and I'm sure that she took a life or two in self-defense. I also know that they hid people under the coal in the basement, which was very dangerous. And I think that trauma lives on through generation to generation until it's actually claimed and resolved. Anyways, going back to unconscious potential, this is what I mean. Unconscious potential, we're using it all the time, and we're not even aware that we're using it. We really don't give ourselves the credit. And sometimes when we know you're using it, well, that's the gateway. Like, if you already know that you're using it, then like that means, hey, the door is ajar. Let's bring that door open, and we can. I've been studying this as a personal pursuit for the longest time. I find this fascinating. The reason I studied to be a hypnotherapist, although I can't really call myself a therapist, I'm a hypnotist. And for the longest time, I called myself a clinical hypnotist because I was so scared of the therapy part. Because although I went to university and I studied linguistics, I did not study therapy in no form in psychology. I wanted to study psychology. It was full, and I went and studied linguistics, which actually turned out that most of my study of linguistics ended up just being in Robarts and studying and reading about religions. So yeah, I gave myself a minor in religions. I'm just going to claim that for myself. But the reason I went to hypnosis is because of Edgar Cayce, the sleeping prophet. I always had this affinity for like the knowledge, the pull towards the unseen, and knowing that it's there, it's accessible, but not truly knowing how. And so this is how I started hypnosis. And to be honest, it's been a give and take journey. I think that it was my fault of the way that I approached it with my clinic and my patients, and it left a scar on me because it went in a more, imagine that, clinical way than the spiritual, empathic, emotive way that I naturally experience that. And so I've studied this for many, many years, and it's come to like, and you know what, just when the student's ready, the teacher presents himself, right? So in my world, the teachers have been authors, writers, scholars, and it doesn't ever disappoint me. It's always true that whenever I'm ready for a piece of information, it comes to me. Well, I found so many books. I think I just mentioned one. This is the second. This is Itzhak Bentov, or Ben, as his friends call him. The first book I lent out, and to be honest, I'm kind of sad that I gave it away because now I want it back. But it's The Pendulum, and he describes, look how little this book is, and he describes the universe, the workings of the universe, quantum physics, the hologram, how it's presented, and it's so simplistic and yet so profound. And when I was reading it, this is what literally went through my mind. I'm like, yes, yes, yes. Oh my gosh, yes, that's exactly how I've been interpreting the universe, or like certain states or consciousness. And so I would like to introduce you to this book a little more intimately, but I want to go through the point that I've realized it's all the same thing. These books are teaching you different layers, like an onion, of the same thing, but the layers have different qualities of it. Imagine that, right? Consciousness, imagine that. The universe has different qualities of perception because we can get to the root, which is the same root, but there's different ways of getting at it. And it's really like, pick your journey. It's like really like pick your adventure. Then there is The Art of Alchemy, which I read at first and I was like, yeah, I know this. This isn't so profound. And the whole book, basically, I'm just going to summarize it for you. We'll touch again on this because I want to show you how similar these things are. The whole book is basically about getting in touch with your body so that you can feel your energetic system. Okay, now if you're thinking that this is already woo-woo, it's crazy because it's so easy. This is the reality of it. It's actually very easy to start tapping into your energy and feeling it and actually moving your consciousness from one part to another and practicing it. It's like stretching. And literally, it is like stretching because you perceive reality through what? Your senses, right? What are your senses? It's your nervous system. So the more you expand through stretching, the better your nerves conduct electricity, information through your body, and that extends into the energy. The more you train your nervous system, and this is where I had issues. I think a lot of people have issues with that. They're incapable of holding energy in their nervous system. That's why we have so many bad habits. But the more you train your nervous system to be able to perceive more instead of shut it out and collapse it because it's like too much, I can't handle it. When we actually train our nervous system to hold energy, discard the energy that we don't need, like discharge, basically, energetic discharge. It doesn't have to be circulating in our body. We already know what the issue is most of the time. We just have to discharge it. But when you learn how to do this, you can start manipulating reality. And I know that sounds like a stretch, but you can. Okay, so this book was basically about breathing and about being aware of certain parts of your body, moving the energy around. And I remember when I was reading it, I'm like, you expect me to do this for how many weeks? I think he's ridiculous in this book. He's like, keep doing it, keep perfecting it. But I really think that he just wanted to make it. I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt. He really wanted to ground the idea that you need to do it. But I think that he just, because it's a short book, he made most of it into the fact that it's like practice, 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 practice. But the reality of the matter is that when you start doing it, you're going to be like, it works. And it works so well, so quickly, that you almost get like drawn into it. You're like, oh, I want to do it again. And each time you do it, your senses expand, you grow, you notice different things. And then you'll have the off day where like nothing happens. Your brain is a monkey, and that's fine, because the following day, if you do it, you'll snap back into it. And this is the thing, you train yourself to snap quicker into it and deeper. And then there's some like funky things about fire and alchemy in here, which makes sense once, because it's all interrelated, but they don't talk about the whole system as a whole. It's everything's individuated. Okay, and then you go into hermetics. This one is the back door into hermetics. And this book is wonderful. It's amazing. It starts with the things that you would expect. Making the promises to yourself about cleanliness, cleanly approach to it. Clean mind, clean living. In order to what? Not for the purpose of being holy and good. It's for the purpose of cleansing your system to be more electromagnetic, in order to be able to hold the energy, the current, and not have it diffused with pollution in your mind, because you're consuming bad things, and you can't even like tap out of your brain because it's running on like automatic fucking loops. And it's about food. Because if you're constantly, if your sugar's crashing and you're in meditation, trust me, you're not going to be in meditation or a good trance state for long, because your body's digesting, it's wanting things. So it's basically about regulating your system. And obviously, it goes without saying that smoking, when you're doing breath work, will definitely inhibit your lungs. Drinking will not make your mind clear. And also there's like residue. And the residue I'm talking about is like emotional residue, like guilt and stuff like that. But anyway, this book, again, it's the same thing. It's basically teaching people through breath and consciousness how to tap in to energy centers and feel them. And you can do it really, really quickly. So, more on that before I kind of wrap it up and tell you what the whole point of it is. Then there's this book, Wheels of Life. It's about the chakra systems. I actually read this book when I was in high school with my best friend. It was her dad's book, so we took turns reading it. And this is one of the first books that changed the way I think about extra sensory perception, about having your senses awaken enough, your natural senses, that they feel like an otherworldly thing. For instance, this book at some point taps into psychic sight and auras. And I remember practicing with my friend how to see an aura. And the way to do it is you're against a white wall. It takes practice, obviously, a lot of it. And you're not focusing. Actually, what you're doing is you're kind of like losing focus. You're softening the gaze. You kind of go cross-eyed. I already have like a lazy eye, so whenever I practice it, one of my eye goes, yeah, it's beautiful. But you soften the gaze, and you just kind of, you kind of allow vision in. And there's another book that I have that it's a vision of perception. I'll put it up here. Like this guy, he could see into other dimensions. And this is actually when I realized, and through Wheels of Life, that I have something that I thought other people have too, and maybe some of you actually do. I see reality as pixelated. And I thought everyone saw this. And I saw floaters. And I attributed the floaters to when I had migraines when I was younger. And I'm like, oh, that just usually is like a sign that I'm getting a migraine, that I need to like go into a dark space. But then I stopped doing that I stopped having the migraines, and I still have floaters every now and then. I just figured, I'm like, I don't know, it's just an eye thing that I have. But no, I see things as pixelated. When I, even like for a second, if I look at the space around me, like it's as if matter is coming in and out of existence. I see like little lights coming in and out. And I have done drugs when I was younger, so I wonder if that augmented my perception, my reality. But once again, this is all talking, and it all comes into this beautiful focal point of what reality is, that we're always coming in and out of existence. Like we're in Tsugal, the Buddhist form of like consciousness and matter, physics. This is another thing, that physics, now that we know so much more about it, lends itself so beautifully to these old traditions. Like it complements it. We're no longer at the point where science is fighting. Okay, science may be fighting organized religions, but that's a whole different topic for a different day, let's be honest, because those are religions of control, not awakening. And so when we're even talking about that, you hear a lot of people, public personalities, online, so many shows, they're like, a cult is bad, God is great, Jesus is king. Great, but if you don't know what that actually means, because the occult, which is just occultare, means hidden. Everyone knows this by now. The occult reveals the truth behind those religions, the core truth that you can actually feel and not believe in the dogma through repetition and just false, blind belief. Recently, I was reading a comment on one of the shows that I watch, and it was a spectacular show. And basically, it was just mind changing. It's consciousness revealing. It shows exactly text, old books that point to the same thing. What I'm trying to illustrate right now. And one of the viewers said that he showed it to his mom, and she's like, "No, I don't want to see it. I know my gods. I trust my God. I don't need to do that." And it's so often that people don't even want to exercise their mind because they feel like that is sinful. Like by looking at what's hidden and what is named taboo, they already feel sin for doing it, and they don't need to explore. They're very comfortable believing what they're told. And this is the flip side of everything. And Hermeticism states this, that if you have blind belief in something that you cannot tangibly experience because you haven't tried it out, that's called ignorance. And so whatever God, spirit form you believe in, if you are not able to push against it and go to the polar opposite of what this is, for the fear of losing yourself or for the fear of some kind of blasphemous punishment, that is no force. That is real, and you do not have an understanding of how it works at all. And so join me. We're going to go down the rabbit hole and kind of go through all these texts. And I really want to just show you some of these exercises and how it feels. And maybe we can actually try to do them together. And so, in a foreword, it says, rather than set forth a cosmology that came to him piecemeal during his practice of the dry method of revelation, the horizons swept in these works, which should be read in conjunction, are related to those opened by seers ranging from Jacob Boehm and Emanuel Swedenborg, and at the end of the Middle Ages to Helen Blavatsky and Rudolf Steiner, my OD, at the turn of the century, and to the received knowledge of many other Western mystics, trance mediums, and spiritually oriented visionaries before and since. The truths revealed are far older than their appearance in Western tradition is evidenced by a letter received by Bentov from a renowned authority on yoga in India, who wrote, "What you say about the nature of the universe is authentic. The point of rest of your wild pendulum is technically called spadna in Shavite, Shavite philosophy. It is the initial impulse the throb, Shakti energy, or cosmic will of the supreme reality. It is all pervasive energy. What you call the off state of consciousness is called samadhi. We talk about getting into samadhi in that. Or the superconscious state in the language of yoga. It is true that instantaneous communication through the universe is possible. The ultimate reality of supreme consciousness is beyond the limitation of time. Empirical time or objective time has no meaning in that state. So categorically, an affirmation, as indeed Bentov's own conclusions, will be similarly brushed aside as meaningless by materialist philosophies now rampant in the world political arena. But to those weary of the daily litany chorused in newspaper headlines, they offer new blazes on a trail into a realm beyond the mundane. So, Isaac Bentov was a meditator, like no meditator. He was also, so this is so fascinating about him because he's like a nuts and bolts guy. And his life is so interesting because he built machines for hospitals, and then he worked for the government, and then he died in a plane crash. But we'll talk about that later. But his idea of meditation has the bifurcation echo, which I've never really heard until I read about it from him, but it's something that I experienced. So when I read it, I was like, oh, snap, that's what that was. And it's basically when you drop into like a very deep meditation, your heart synchronizes, your lungs, your breathing drops a lot. And it synchronizes with the beat of your heart. And your heart is pulling and pushing blood. And there's a bifurcation echo where one expel meets a return, and they meet, and it creates kind of a resonance. And basically that means that you're like now tuned in meditation, and you actually feel it, like this like drop. But what's most interesting about that state is like you feel pressure on your head, like you are wearing a headband. And because what actually is happening is your brain is encased in fluid to protect it from like smashing into your skull. And when that resonance happens, the fluid starts resonating and shaking too, making you fully tuned and a resonant being, and also more tuned with the Schumann resonance, which is like the Earth's natural resonance of 7.83 hertz, I believe, which makes you an antenna. So now if you're in this like tuned state, and you revisit the state to know what's happening, and you can go, oh yeah, now I can use my mind. I can use my consciousness to activate the field, to be in the field. You're basically like an internet source. Now you can communicate through the field. Or as the Hermetics call it, Akasha. Black matter. Whatever. You want to call it dark matter. And now you can actually do some cool things with it. In the Wheels of Life, she talks about the chakra system, which you're basically moving your life energy into the Akasha, into the energetic sphere, because you're magnetized, and you'll feel it. When you start practicing it, you will actually feel the bubble. It feels like you're in a bubble. And what else is this? What else does this sound like? The Gateway Project. Because that's exactly what the Gateway Project is. Now, the Hermetics practice a prayer before they move their consciousness from the third eye to roughly a hand above. There's another chakra point in Wheels of Life. She calls it Agni, like the fire chakra. In Hermetics, call it the chakra or the energy point that draws in Akasha. Either way, even as I'm touching it right now, because I work with it, so this is so cool. Even that my hand is here, I feel it. I feel it because I've worked with it so much that now it triggers it. So that's a point above your head that you can really do some cool things with. And once you practice and you keep doing it, this lovely lady reminded me of something that I forgot, and it's about manifesting. Now, we have to determine what the goal of this is. Like, why are we pursuing this? Is it to liberate ourselves? Hermetics are about liberation. Hermetics are like, you want to touch the brotherhood of the light. You want to work with the brotherhood of the light, which Rudolf Steiner explains in so many words as the spheres, which brings us into planetary alignments through different evolutions of humanity. There's just so much to talk about, but it's all correlated. It's all linked. And when you read enough of these books, you're like, yeah, obviously. And then you start working with these energies and you actually feel it tangibly, and you're like, yeah, it works. So the wheels of life, going back to what I was saying, is the purpose. So Hermetics, they want to escape the life cycle. They want to go into samsara, and they want to be one. They want to be united with the non-dual light, the creator of all creators, Shiva, the non-dual light. Then there's a dual light, which is the light that creates, that manifests into the akasha, into the sphere, into what consciousness moves through, into matter. And this book, I forgot about this, it talks about the root chakra. It goes through all the chakras, obviously, and it goes, the root chakra is the manifesting chakra, which people overlook all the time. And I think that's because it looks simplistic. It's like the first chakra. It has to do with like human necessities, survival, eating, shitting, fear, the things that we don't really want to, we're much more evolved, and everything in a society and in spirituality is like, we're so evolved that we're on like higher chakras. My third eye's open. Which if it was, you wouldn't function in society at all. But the root chakra is the manifestation chakra. It's the densest energy that actually condenses the astral light that comes from the non-dual light through the dual light, through the akasha field, where you store your energy and your intention into your system through the vision, through speaking it, through feeling it, through willpower, making it, through centralizing it, and then bringing it into manifest reality, which is the tangible reality, such as manifestation. And I remember I was skipping that step completely. I read this many years ago, but I was skipping that step. I just thought that I can manifest through my mind and my heart. And if these things were just aligned, then great. Happen like that. But my point is that these things are not just some like woo-woo things that like a lot of new age books are written like that. Like, if you just put a feather on your pillow and talk the name of the angel, you will get dreams. And then pick a card the next morning and the answer will be revealed. Like, on a certain level that will work, but only after you regulated your emotional and energetic system for that shit to work. Because that's not gonna work if none of these things are done first. That's just moronic. But this is an actual system with steps and practices and tangible results. And all of these books talk about these steps. This is not like a woo-woo thing. I'm like, I'm gonna imagine it and it's gonna happen. Like, there's a work that needs to be done in order for these things to work. And so in my next video, this is already way too long. In my next video, I'm going to go through all of those, and we're going to start practicing and then working on them, because I think it's fantastic. And then that feather card thing will work. And then I'll also tell you next time about how the cool story, which actually fucked me over for like months, because I was just disjointed, depressed. Now that I know what happened, it's cool, but it wasn't cool when I was living through it. Anyways, thanks guys. My name is Agnes. This is Unconscious Potential. Like, subscribe, leave me a comment.